man, I'm tired of this. I am genuinely tired of having to deal with BS. And every single time, it's always me that has to deal with it. And it's, man, just Sonic Frontiers doesn't deserve any of the disrespect that it's getting. Like, that's a straight fact right there. And for those that stumble upon this video, welcome. Usually when I do these videos, it really means something is going wrong in terms of a video game's reception. I mean, I've done this with Shin Megami Tensei 5, back with IGN, a year ago. I did it with Metroid Prime, Pokemon Legends Arceus. I did it against Verilicify. So all of you, for those that have known me at this point, you know what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to bash at. And for those that don't know, like I said, buckle up because this is going to be real good. Like, I got a lot of receipts for this one. And I genuinely mean by what I say that Sonic Frontiers is getting some massive disrespect, but mainly by 4 culprits here. Like, these are the 4 big bads that we have to deal with in terms of how much disrespect they gave Sonic Frontiers. Because quite frankly, personally, my experience with Frontiers has been a very amazing experience, and so many have had that same sort of sentiment with this game as well. This game is what a lot of people have always wanted out of a 3D Sonic game since Sonic Unleashed, and that was 14 years ago, and I cannot stress that enough because that just shows how much of a commitment Sonic Team provided for this one in particular. But then of course you got idiots in the room that like to think otherwise and claim they're in the right and rightfully criticizing and bashing this game for no apparent reason other than they just want to give an opinion out there and really piss some people off. And it really pissed me off, otherwise I'm going to be making this video. But without further ado, let's grab the receipts and talk about each and every person that disrespected Sonic Frontiers here. And a quick disclaimer before we do begin. Note that because a lot of people tend to think that I am attacking the character of the person when it comes to these videos, I am not. I am only criticizing their opinion and rightfully showing their hypocrisy and contradictions. It's their opinion that I am attacking, not the character and their way of life. If you are attacking their character, then you really need to do some serious self-reflection, because I do not fly with that. I do not do that unless it is absolutely necessary to criticize it simply because I want them to be a better person. That is the only exception to that rule, and I hope a lot of you guys understand that. And if you did not watch that, I will emphasize this in the comments down below, because unless you're not even reading that, then wow, you really need some self-reflection. But anyway, culprit number 1 we got here is Nintendo Life. And funny enough, why would I be talking about Nintendo Life and not, first of all, Digital Trends? Because that's obviously one that I'm very pissed off at, but we'll get to them in a second. But the reason why I'm starting off with Nintendo Life is because they're rather tame with their opinion. You know, they said what they said. They reviewed, obviously, the Switch version of Sonic Frontiers, which I've made a video on that, saying that I've had my experiences with the Switch version, and quite frankly, it does have some flaws, it does have some issues, and obviously Nintendo Life does showcase that. But what bothers me and what blatantly disrespects Sonic Frontiers is their absolute score, scoring this a 4 out of 10 simply because they think they are in the right in saying that Sonic Frontiers is an ambitious take on something that ultimately failed. And the question is, well, what is that ambition? What is that attempt that they were trying to make out of Sonic Frontiers? In which case, they don't specify at all, and the only single comparison that they make is, of course, Breath of the Wild. And even then, that's like a small comparison they made. Not even, it's a reference they make to kind of at least show the capacity of what Sonic Frontiers is showcasing on a presentation and gameplay front, but even then, they haven't showcased exactly what is that attempt, in which case I would offer an open world experience that everybody wants, and to reevaluate the characters of each and every Sonic cast that we know and love, and just overall provide us that sense of Sonic adventure that we've all loved back then, and kind of wished the 2010s writing had, but they didn't at the end. That's basically what Sonic Frontiers did, and honestly, it did a better damn good job than Forces, which, by the way, Nintendo Life gave a 6 out of 10 for Forces and a 4 out of 10 for Frontiers. Yeah, that really says a lot, to be honest. But like I said, we're escalating from here, because up next we got Digital Trends, and Digital Trends is one that, oh man, this one pissed me off a little bit because it was a day 1 review. Everybody was like lifting the embargo on Sonic Frontiers reviews and their, thoughts and expressions on this game and whatnot. And Digital Trends had the audacity to be the first one to give a 1.5 out of 5, that's their review score, for Sonic Frontiers. And the funny thing about this review is the way they started off is by immediately making the the comparison of Sonic 06 and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric in terms of Sonic Frontier's supposed bugginess and glitchiness according to their experience, because quite frankly, like I said, I've experienced the Switch version. That has its flaws because it's on the Switch, but if you look at the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X versions of this game, you'll notice that there are no flaws in their gameplay. There are no bugs, there are no glitches, none of that. That game is perfectly sound and fine, and Digital Trends decided to say otherwise, as well as just saying that, oh, for an empty world, it rarely shows any ambition or some level of creative design and whatnot, while at the same time contradicting themselves and saying, oh, but it's a horrendous 3D collectathon to do with the amount of, vault keys you have to collect, with the cyberspace levels, and what else, with the memory tokens that you collect in each and every island. Like, which one is it? Like, which one are you trying to say, Digital Trends? Is it an empty world, or is it filled with so much stuff that it is actually very fun to look forward to and find and collect as what a 3D collectathon game platforming is supposed to be? Which one? But to kind of make it similar in the case of Nintendo Lives, they did present a similar discussion and a similar level of discourse in the sense of there are valid points that they brought up in terms of other aspects of Sonic Frontiers, which I highly recommend you read, but at the same time, it doesn't deserve to be a 1.5 out of 5 when you realize that most of what the review actually states, if you calculate each and every, the percentage of the point, the whole range of their review score, in actuality, they've actually reviewed what is considered a 3.0 or 3.5 out of 5 game. So I don't know what happened to the reviewer on that day when he was playing Sonic Frontiers, but that wasn't it, Chief. Like I'm telling you, it's not a 1.5. That's a fact. But you know who else did a 1.5 out of 5 review score for Sonic Frontiers, which just rightfully almost got me to the edge, just a little bit to the edge in terms of the blatant disrespect of Sonic Frontiers here, and that's none other than Stephanie Sterling, which again, going back to the disclaimer, it is right to criticize their opinion, but the fact that I've heard that there were many people criticizing their personality and their character, that's a no-no. No, separate the two, because I'm sure Stephanie Sterling, they're a wonderful person inside and outside and all around, but their review on Sonic Frontiers rightfully deserves to be called stupid and ridiculous, because how is it that you're saying that the boss fights are aping Shadow the Colossus when you have to think in terms of Sonic's history, all of the Titan boss fights are literally all of the modern Sonic final boss fights in terms of presentation, gameplay, and in some capacity combat. Literally the first Titan boss fight reminded me a lot of Perfect Chaos from Sonic Adventure 1, which by the way, that released in 1998. When did Shadow the Colossus release? Somewhere around the PlayStation 2 era, so that's clearly 5 to 6 years later. So how can you say that, oh, it's mimicking Shadow the Colossus, when in reality it is mimicking Sonic Adventure 2, as it rightfully should. Oh, but in addition to that, Sterling also decided to outright bash the developers by calling them, and I quote, lazy hack who just did an asset flip in terms of the game. And let me tell you a little bit something about Sterling, because from what I've heard in the realms of the internet, this is the same exact person that has advocated for video game development representation and work ethics and rights. And to say that, especially when you look back at first-hand primary source and testimony of Hizuka and Kishimoto, the main heads of this particular game, saying that they had to work over 22 hours every single day to ensure that every little detail and asset to the cyberspace levels, despite being reused assets, are intact and sound and perfect to go for this game. There were 2 people, according to Izuka, that were in charge of this oversight, and Izuka was one of them, and he had to do double the work because the other guy was sick due to the amount of stress and work that they had to do in order to make sure that Sonic Frontiers would be the game that they wanted for everybody to experience. So for you to say that they were lazy, well, there is testimony of the fact that they had to work overtime for something that they love and to make sure that the fans would too. That also says a lot in terms of what exactly are you trying to get out of Sonic Frontiers? Are you trying to really piss off people? Are you really trying to contradict your entire sort of, opinion of how to handle certain situations like this? This is something that clearly needs to be called out, because how can you say one thing and end up saying the other and just, double, obviously you double down at the end, but at the same time, there were some consequences to this one. But last but certainly not least, and a lot of you guys saw this guy on the thumbnail, and trust me, Trust me, I had to restrain myself with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and that entire debacle with this guy. But with Sonic Frontiers, a game that I've actively waited and I've always wanted since 2008 with Sonic Unleashed, to re-emphasize that. A Sonic game that I've wanted in terms of reviving the Sonic Adventure lifestyle, like style and characterization, the gameplay aspects, the modern Sonic quality that I remember growing up playing Sonic Adventure DX, Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Sonic Heroes, like that era, the adventure era. The fact that this guy right here decided to just obviously make a quote-unquote funny and satirical video without obviously not taking a single spine of responsibility for the actions that it just sort of ensued thereafter based on his video. And for all of you guys that know who I'm talking about, oh yeah, you know exactly who I'm freaking talking about. Yeah, that's right, he who shall not be named, because I don't even want to give him the satisfaction of saying his name out loud, because obviously there is one thing in terms of, you know, their opinions and things like that, but then there's also presentation. And like how I've said my takes against Verlicify, the same is going to be said with this guy here, because there are certain qualities in his personality that needs to be changed, because the fact that this person obviously made his review on Sonic Frontiers and then decided to, you know, make it all look bad and broken and blah 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 as again a quote-unquote satirical video on gaming journalism, but the audacity of, at the end of that video, of showing all other review scores of all other games that everybody absolutely love and cherish, and then thereafter getting thousands of review bombs of this game simply because they saw this video and don't even have a shred of critical thinking skills in their thing or a level of observation and at least try out the game for themselves. The fact that all of that happened and then later he doesn't even acknowledge the responsibility that he has to take and the consequences that happen in regards to all of that, but the fact that he's willing to say that, oh, it's the Sonic fans' fault for review bombing a game that they love just so they can hate on him. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? And it's like me saying, oh, I love the shawarma pizza, but goddamn, this place absolutely, I hate this, like, nah, man, I hate this pita, but like, you know, this pita still, you know, it's built different. What does that even mean? Okay, I don't even know what was going on with that analogy, but you guys get my point and what I'm saying, that just, I don't understand the lack of responsibility, and that's where it ties into the disrespect of Sonic Frontiers in this case, where besides all the other three culprits that we've mentioned, where it's more so their opinion, and you know, whatever, there are some valid criticisms in some aspects of their thing, and blah blah blah, things like that, but this guy right here, the audacity to make that claim, really says a lot in their personality. And like I've said in this video, I don't know how long this video is at this point, but like I've said, and I will re-emphasize, I don't attack the character of a person unless it is absolutely necessary, and I want this person to be a better version of themselves, and I want them to learn from their mistakes. But it seems to be the case that this person right here doesn't want to learn the fact that he has a large following and a large audience that will not think for themselves, because they will look at this video and call it gospel. And there was another person in the Pokemon side of things that does the exact same thing. And that is what I'm going to criticize in regards to disrespect to Sonic Frontiers. Because, first of all, you're not funny. None of those videos are funny. I didn't even laugh a single one. You know who makes me laugh? Alpha Rad, Games Cage, Some Call Me Johnny, and Dude's Got the Wasp. They know how to make satire, and they know how to make things funny. You absolutely don't. I'm sorry to say. Like, it's just a fact right there, first of all. And second of all, again, own up to your mistakes on this front. Own up to the mistakes that you made. Because you can't make the claim of saying, oh, Sonic fans love and hate this game and are review bombing just because they hate me. No. That's illogical. Everybody loves this game. All the reviews that I've seen on Metacritic, everybody loves this game. Everybody that hates this game is because of you. So learn and own up to that. It doesn't take no more than 2 seconds to say, you know, my bad. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta own up to this mistake. I'll do better next time. You see how easy that was? But at the end of the day, all of this is, you know, they're expressing their freedom of speech. You know, whatever. It is what it is. But at the same time, you have to understand that for some games, the reviews are absolutely critical, especially for a game like Sonic Frontiers. And this is where I have to be a little bit more serious here, and not so much bashing all the claims and whatnot, but to actually have a serious conversation in terms of Sonic Frontiers. Whether you like it to or not, Sega and Sonic Team, specifically Sega, by the way, will look into the reviews of this game and they will weigh it drastically against the will of Sonic Team. And they will determine whether or not we will get another Sonic Frontiers game, or we're gonna go back to Pontiff and Graph levels of writing, and we're gonna get another stupid Sonic Colors 2. Despite the fact that I actually enjoy that game, but I don't like the writing of it. No, not a single Sonic fan wants to go back to that era. Nobody really enjoyed the meta era. It wasn't funny, it didn't represent what Sonic was meant to be, and it just wasn't Sonic. Sonic Frontiers demonstrates Sonic. It demonstrates what Sonic always was at the end of the day. A shonen protagonist, not a cartoon series. Sonic Boom does that. Sure, you can make the claim of Sonic X, but even Sonic X was animated in a style that makes it look like a shonen anime. And it was in 4Kids. So was Yu-Gi-Oh! So was Pokemon. So, yeah, it was always a shonen level of a protagonist and a world. And we see that a lot with all of the Adventure era and parts of the early Modern era. With Sonic 06, despite what people say about how bad that game was. With Sonic Unleashed, how great and just the peak of what made Sonic the way that he is today. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Sonic Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, despite how utterly edgy that game is and whatever flaws it ended up being for that. Sonic was always known for that. That's who he was. And that's what people need to understand with this. And the real message that I'm making with this video at the end of the day is that all of these people simply don't get it. They don't understand Sonic like everybody else does, because they don't understand the severity of what their review is actually going to cause. It's going to cause a lot of discomfort on many people, especially on higher ups like Sega and Sonic Team, because they will see those reviews. I know I'm gonna say this again, but they will see those reviews and they will use it against Sonic Team and say, hey, we gave you this budget for Sonic Frontiers, but it seems like people didn't want it at the end of the day. I thought you knew what you were doing. Nah, screw it. You guys lost your way. We're gonna give you another Sonic Colors too. Because apparently people love that, you know, it helped out in the end. Do you really want this to be another Bayonetta situation? Where with Bayonetta 2, like there was that whole entire debacle of like Sega being like, oh yeah, I don't want this IP anymore, and Nintendo had to swoop in to save that IP? Because that's what happened with Bayonetta on Sega. And that says a lot in Sega's, you know, marketing and your sort of business strategies in regards to their IPs. And I don't want that to happen with Sonic here. Simply because you don't like Sonic Frontiers and you're willing to review bomb this game. I've said what I've said at the end of the day, and you can take what I've said with a grain of salt, or you can use it in your own observations with Sonic Frontiers. Because trust me when I say this, Sonic is back. Regardless of if you played it on the Switch or on the PC, Sonic is back to his roots. And I won't let anybody say otherwise, because that is a certain fact. Ian Flynn made sure of that. Sonic Team and Sega, despite them, again, you know what I said earlier, made sure of that. And it is our time to demonstrate that. Yes, it is important to acknowledge their flaws. It is always important to acknowledge a video game's flaws. Because obviously for the next game, if it ends up being a franchise, they could always improve on it. But you also have to understand what is fact and what is truth. And that is that in the case of Sonic Frontiers, it is getting disrespected for no reason other than it just being a Sonic game that apparently nobody wants. And it's just a game that actually did a lot of actual right ambitions. And the ambitions made it work. This is a Sonic game that works. And for those that don't think that it works, you have to understand whether it's your personal experience with it, whether which version you ended up buying, or somehow along the way RNG was just not in your favor. But a lot of people have said Sonic Frontiers is one of the best Sonic games there is. It is on par with Sonic Unleashed. And I know I've said this phrase a lot, but it really says a lot in terms of the level of craft and love and dedication they gave to this specific game. And it really sucks that all the four culprits that I've talked about in this video don't really see that. I am now done. I am now officially done. The rest is all yours in the comments down below. I am ready for a respectful discussion. And again, I am ready to see just what the comments have in store for me here and what this video is going to say in terms of the long run. Because, you know, it is what it is. And like I said, if I say something wrong, I'm willing to accept it. But, you know, I'm going to end this with positivity. I love you all so 120. Peace out. Take care. And you're in charge of this video right here.